Hello again. I am following with great enjoyment the slow motion collapse of Boris Johnson's premiership. I'm not one of those hypocrites who's denouncing him for not following a lot of damn fool rules and regulations. After all, I didn't obey them myself, so why should I criticise the Prime Minister for not following them? I will freely admit that I was meeting up with my daughter in May 2020 and that she came to stay with us at Christmas that year. That means that I can hardly start swooning at the idea of Boris Johnson and his chums having a party in the back garden of 10 Downing Street. Hand on heart, how many people watching this did not bend the rules or even simply ignore them? Precious few, I'll be bound. No, this is not my objection to Johnson's conduct. My difficulty with the man is that he doesn't seem to be bright enough to cover up his failings or know when he is doing something which is sure to come to light in the fullness of time. I have no problems at all with a sharp-witted or even crooked Prime Minister. Sometimes the most cunning and shameless politicians make the best leaders. I'm not always open and above board in my dealings, so why should I expect a Prime Minister to be any different? What I do have, though, is the ability to know what I can get away with and what I cannot. To give one example, I never ever attempt to cheat the Inland Revenue by lying on my tax returns. This is not because I'm honest, but because they have unlimited resources to investigate my financial affairs at any time. And if I try and cheat them, it's a racing certainty that they will find out. In other words, that particular game simply isn't worth the candle, because either a year, 2 years or 10 years down the line, they'll find out, and my deceit will come back to bite me in the arse. In areas where I can get away with sharp practice, I'm happy to do so if it's to my advantage, as long as it remains secret. What I find alarming about Boris Johnson is he doesn't seem to have this rudimentary cunning and ability to gauge how far he can go and what he's likely to be able to get away with. I find this alarming because if he doesn't have this ability in his personal life, then he probably doesn't have it in matters of international politics either, and that is very worrying. It's not that he doesn't know right from wrong, but that he doesn't know how to get caught, avoid being caught out when doing wrong that disturbs me. This is a disastrous failing and must inevitably lead to trouble. Remember when he wanted to get his flat in Downing Street decorated without paying for it? Would anybody with the sense God gave a goat have discussed shady ways of financing it in conversations by email or WhatsApp? Of course not, because then there would be a permanent record of the conversation remaining for all eternity, sure to come up sooner or later. This is a WhatsApp message sent to Boris Johnson in an exchange that he was having with one of his cronies, Lord Brownlow, on the subject of getting a flat decorated for nothing. Lord Brownlow replied to something the Prime Minister said on WhatsApp on the 29th of November 2020 in the following way. I should have said, as the trust isn't set up yet, approval is a doddle, as it's only me and I know where the pounds will come from. It's a doddle. Straight away we know that this is some shifty and dubious business. That is precisely how people talk when they're doing something that's a little dodgy. It's a doddle, no one will know. That the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom should want to get his home decorated on the cheap, and preferably without paying a penny for it, is perfectly understandable, and we'd all of us like to get something like that done for nothing. I don't think many of us would be idiotic enough to leave a permanent trail like that, which would end up being printed in the newspapers, though. Seeing those messages and the man talking of something as being a doddle because only he knows where some of money is coming from reminds us that Boris Johnson's best friend at Oxford was Darius Guppy, the spiv who ended up in prison for insurance fraud and fiddling the VAT. Then too Johnson was caught out, this was way back, 1990, telephone conversation between him and Guppy was leaked, in which a plan was being hatched to wreak revenge on a newspaper reporter against whom Guppy had a grudge. That didn't look very good for Johnson either. I will cheerfully tolerate a Prime Minister who is a crafty liar and gets up to all kinds of funny business, as long as he has the wit and good judgment which enables him to keep all this out of sight. Such men often make the best kind of politicians, as I said. I will also put up with a Prime Minister who is not all that bright, but at the same time is thoroughly decent and honest. What we have in the current man in Downing Street, though, is the worst of all possible worlds. It's somebody who is shifty and gets up to some very dubious things, but doesn't seem to be sharp enough to prevent it all becoming known. This is terrible. It makes me feel that if he's too stupid to cover up his sharp practice, then he's really too stupid to be running my country.